Name any piece of scientific evidence concerning chemistry, biology, paleontology, anthropology, or any of the other scientific disciplines that make any statement at all about life, man, origins, or species adaptation, and here is what you will find every time. Both the evolutionist and the creationist are observing the same evidence, and they are commenting on it profusely. It is an undeniable fact that both are producing books, journalistic contributions, films, scientific study reports, etc., on the same discovered evidence. Both have their scientists lined up to give either evolutionary or creationist commentary on the discovered evidence. Again, name any single piece of scientific curiosity, run a Google search on it from a creationist view or the evolutionist view. You will find a plethora of articles on each. To be completely honest, then, each side argues about who is interpreting it more scientifically. Both sides will claim that the other is ignoring some piece of scientific given. It is the same for both sides. Show me a mistake that a creation scientist has made, and I will show you a plethora of mistakes that have been made and even printed in textbooks by the evolutionists for all to see. Start accusing a creationist of sloppy science, and I will show you where even some of the very foundational elements of evolution theory have completely ignored pure scientific method and falsification processes. This is simple enough for a high school student to demonstrate, and it has been demonstrated many, many times. Additionally, show me an elemental scientific theory of a creationist that was later proven to be wrong, and again, I can point you to time after time when the same has been true with the evolutionist. Several of these evolutionist blunders have been well publicized, documented, and celebrated. So what does all of this mean? Well, the conclusion is simple. Both the evolutionist and the creationist are looking at the very same evidence all the time. We see the same thing, but we interpret the evidence differently. We understand it differently. In short, then, since we are looking at the same evidence, how is it that we can arrive at such different conclusions? Again, the answer is simple. Scientific evidence doesn't really say anything in and of itself. The so-called evidence is what it is, and it says simply that it exists for our observation and interpretation. What the evidence means is then declared by the scientist, either an evolution scientist or a creation scientist. So in the final analysis, science doesn't say anything. The scientists do. So let's just be honest about this. The evolutionist begins his examination of the evidence declaring that there is no intelligent designer. They declare from the beginning of the examination of any evidence their refusal to even acknowledge the possibility of an intelligent designer. In other words, the evolutionist, in his attempt to completely discredit even the idea of God, scientifically limits himself from the outset. Therefore, when he sees the evidence, he has to declare, this happened through a completely natural process. He then develops an entire philosophy around this premise and declares it to be scientific because, after all, he and he alone is really looking at the scientific evidence. Since we are being honest, it has always amazed me when an evolutionist says something like, in the scientific study of evolution, we make no statement about religion or God. We merely examine the evidence. But this simply is not honest. Their own scientific literature bears this out. Their very examination of the evidence in the first place presupposes that no intelligent design was involved. The creationist, on the other hand, looks at the very same evidence, employs the principles of scientific method and understanding from the beginning, that the amount of evidence that we find that implies a designer is overwhelming. We also acknowledge that there are many wonders involving changes within species that obviously are coded within the elemental makeup of the species, and then from the beginning have followed a natural process of change initiated by the designer of the design. Same evidence, different conclusion, based upon where the scientist starts and what limits he has placed upon himself from the beginning. It seems that the creationist is much more free to practice real science then, and employ common sense in his observations, and he is free to declare the difference between those processes that are obviously natural processes over those that have inherent design evidence within. It is amazing how we, in reality, now find ourselves in a fascinating and thoroughly intelligent, thinking, creating, designing, and changing world. From the smallest microbes to the largest beasts that roam the earth, to man himself, there are constant intelligent processes occurring within species. Decisions are being made. Thought processes are being followed. Genetic codes are being deciphered. Information is being transported. Designs are being developed. Inventions are being created. Work is being done. Books are being written. Technology is being manufactured. The Creationist proclaims intelligent processes are occurring throughout the planet, under the microscope, in the jungle, under the surface of the sea, and around the nations. Intelligence and design scream from one end of the earth to the other. It seems unthinkable to say that all of this obvious intelligence had no intelligent input or intervention from the beginning. The poor evolutionist is forced to stand in a corner and say, I am sorry, I don't hear it, I don't see it, and I certainly won't speak it.